Yo, what's up, Epic 7 players? Pat here with another video guide, and in this one, I'll be giving you my 2 cents on the custom group summons, aka the triple banner summons as they're sometimes referred to. They are coming out very soon. There are a lot of options that players can choose for this, but at the end of the day, you have to narrow it down to 3 choices. So in this video, I'll be going over what I think the best possible choices are, as well as, in my opinion, every other conceivably good choice you could make. Basically, I'm going to cover almost all of the characters in it. We're going to talk about things like, are they good in PvE? Are they good in PvP? Where are their best use cases? Do they have any other uses besides that one best use case? We'll even talk about things like the artifact on the banner and who those artifacts are actually good on. Basically, giving you as much info as I possibly can so you can make the most informed decision possible when it comes to this banner. Without any further ado, let's get right into the video. Before we begin, we first have to cover what custom group summons are and how they work. Once players have cleared episode 1 of the story, they will have the ability to choose 3 limited and/or covenant heroes. Those heroes will be grouped together on a single banner in which you are able to summon for them, and they will be accompanied by their respective 5-star artifacts. Players can choose any Covenant or limited hero, provided it has been 6 months since the hero's release. The choices also cannot be collaboration heroes, and if it's going to be a limited hero, it has to have been reran at least 1 time. Since players are able to choose a good portion of the game's heroes, including limited ones, this is a great time to pick up heroes you may be missing, or to fill out your roster with a specific niche that you may not have. Almost as important as choosing the heroes, though, is the artifacts that are going to accompany those heroes as well. Each 5-star hero in the game has an artifact tied to them, and many of them, especially the limited hero artifacts, are some of the best in-slot options for many of the game's characters. The purpose of this video is to help you come to a decision on what the 3 best heroes are going to be for you. It is important to choose a combination of heroes that will provide you with a good mix of not only new heroes, but artifacts and also duplicates, since you will have the ability to exchange Stars Mirage coins to pick up extra copies during the banner's duration. If this system works similarly to how it has for other group summons in the past, 80 summons on the banner will net you an artifact of your choice from amongst the 3 you chose, while 120 summons will net you one of the 3 heroes of your choice. Knowing all of that, we are going to operate under the assumption that Summertime Iseria is the cutoff point for limiteds. You will not be able to summon for her or her artifact, but any non-collaboration limited unit before her should be legal. We're also going to assume that Ran is the cutoff point for standard Covenant heroes. His 6-month anniversary is pretty much right here as soon as this banner actually drops, so he should be legal, and this list assumes that he is, and we're going to evaluate him as such. If for some reason he's not included, obviously you can just ignore him. Mandatory pickups. This section is characters I think every player, regardless of skill level, should have access to. They make your life considerably easier and will allow you to progress your account the fastest. The first choice, of course, is going to be Seaside Bellona, or simply SSB for short. SSB tops my list for several reasons. First and foremost, she's a limited unit. Any other non-limited unit you could potentially get off of your free Covenant summon every single day. But limited units, those are usually only available for 2 weeks out of the whole year. And if you don't have a specific one, you probably should strongly consider using one of your choices on that character, because you never know when they might get buffed or receive some kind of change that might make them even better than they already currently are. Secondly, she's pretty much excellent everywhere. She's one of the best hunt characters in all of Epic 7. 90% of your time playing Epic 7 will be hunting, by the way, so you might as well choose a top tier choice. She's used to clear some of the hardest content in the game with Abyss, specifically the very later stages of Abyss, like 119, I believe, as well. She is very, very good there and can make your life a lot easier. She currently has one of the highest win rates in all of World Arena. She doesn't have the greatest pick rate. You don't see her that often, but when she is picked, she wins a lot of the time. So it would be nice to have this character if you are interested in PvP at all. Also, she has Reingar's Special Drink on her banner as her featured 5-star artifact. It is a limited artifact, so it's the only time you can actually get it will be on her banner. And it's also really, really powerful. It's what gives her most of her power in PvP, and it also enables the fastest Wyvern 13 runs in the entire game, so you really do want to have multiple copies of it. If you want to learn more about how to play SSB, you can check out my comprehensive guide for her here on this channel. The second best option for most people is going to end up being Tamarinne. She is the best Soul Weaver in PvE, no questions asked. Her S3 skill, Shining Star, is arguably the best PvE move in the entire game. Once Tamarinne changes into her idol form, she becomes a powerhouse character that functions as a cleanser, a healer, a buffer, a dispeller, and a DPS all at the same time. She is either the best or tied for the best support option in every game mode, it feels like, including Adventure, Labyrinth, Expedition, Abyss, and more than half of the game's hunts. The 5-star artifact on her banner, Idol's Cheer, is used by several Moonlight 5-star heroes as one of their best options at high-level play, meaning that when you're choosing her, you're getting not only one of the best heroes in the entire game, but a very good artifact to pair with the other Soul Weavers that are on your roster. Next up, we have Sigret. Sigret is a free option for players during the Awaken update, so if you already have her, you can skip this section. Sigret is the queen of Wyverns thanks to her S3 skill, Guillotine. Wyvern, for most players, is going to be the best hunt to farm to progress their account quickly for a myriad of reasons. I detail most of those in my all-in-one Wyvern 13 guide, which you can find here on this channel. Sigret is the best Wyvern character in the game, so it goes without saying you want the best character to farm the best gameplay mode. Sigret's artifact, Cradle of Life, isn't really that good, so I wouldn't choose her banner for any other reason than you want to get one copy of her to get the ball rolling on your Epic 7 journey. Next, we have Vivian. She is also available for free, like Sigret, in the Awaken update. Vivian is probably the best overall hunt character in the entire game. No one is better at farming Golem, Banshee, or Azumanic than Vivian, thanks to a combination of her skills and exclusive equipment options. Since she can farm the most hunts in the game, she gives you the greatest amount of flexibility when gearing heroes and lets you branch out into a myriad of different gameplay styles. Her artifact, Dignus Orb, is her best artifact and is very good, but doesn't really have much use unless you own the hero Top Model Luluka. Heroes for PvE as well as PvP. This section is filled with heroes that are strong in almost every single gameplay mode in Epic 7. These are the heroes that you'll want to have to fill out your roster if you don't already have them. The first one to talk about is Landy. Landy is a powerful AoE damage dealer that can destroy even the tankiest teams. She is a limited hero, which means you do not always have access to her, so you should give her a strong amount of consideration if you already haven't done so. She is excellent in Expedition, Raid, and also Abyss, which is the hardest gameplay mode in all of PvE. She is an amazing hero in Guild War as well as Arena in terms of both offensive and defensive power. She's not as useful in World Arena anymore, but she still is a viable pick even at top level, assuming you have very good gear for the character. Her artifact, Wall of Order, is not super useful, but there are heroes such as Operator Sigret who can make excellent use of it. For more on how to play Landy, there is a comprehensive guide for her here on my channel. Next, let's talk about Diene. Diene is a fast Soul Weaver who doesn't have any healing, but she makes up for it with a variety of useful buffs, barriers, and cleanses. She is a limited hero, so again, you should be considering her before other Covenant heroes in this same category. Diene is one of the oldest heroes in Epic 7, but she's been a high tier or top tier pick almost the entire game's lifespan. She's great for new players in Hunt as well as Raid until they develop a stronger roster, and she's one of the all-time best choices in Abyss, even if you already have Tamarinne. She has consistently performed well in PvP over the years and always comes back into the meta just when everyone assumes she's not good anymore. In fact, she just received a buff too, so there's a pretty good chance she might actually make that comeback. Her artifact, Unfading Memories, is really bad, but it is limited and may eventually receive a buff, so you might want to actually snag a copy. If you are looking for a strong artifact to pair with Diene, consider using Rod of Amaryllis instead. Let's talk about Roana. Roana is as thick as she appears. She is an incredibly tanky healer. Her defining feature is her S2 passive Vigilant Eye. Vigilant Eye will heal your party by a large amount and increase their combat readiness whenever an enemy counterattacks, dual attacks, or extra attacks. Obviously, this makes her a staple pickup if you're a PvP player because she is a free win against heroes that rely on those mechanics such as Seaside Bellona or someone like Solitaria of the Snow. The reason that she's here under PvE plus PvP, however, is because many of Epic 7's bosses have extra attacks or counterattack mechanics stapled onto them, such as the Hell Raid boss or the Expedition bosses. Many fights that would be difficult for newer players become trivial if Roana's passive actually works on them, and as such, those bosses will never be able to kill you. This makes her an incredibly lucrative pickup for PvE players as well. Her artifact, Touch of Rekos, is usually never the best option for healers, but it is a solid option depending on the character as well as your playstyle. Lastly, to round out this section, let's talk about Krau. Krau is one of the game's premier tanks as well as a surprisingly powerful blue damage dealer due to his amazing S3 Siegfried. Krau is one of the 2 heroes in the game that has received no changes since the very beginning and is somehow still meta relevant. You know that choosing this character is going to have a lot of value in the long term. He is an amazing tank for new players getting started because he's great in Adventure, Wyvern, and Labyrinth until you get on your feet. As you approach the late game, he is arguably the best tank in the game for Guild War offense, and one of the best tanks you can choose if you don't own the Moonlight 5-star hero, Fallen Cecilia. Siegfried is one of the universally best answers to hard-to-kill heroes in this game, including characters such as Hua Young if you're having trouble with her. Krau's best artifact is the 4-star Arius, but his banner does come with the 5-star artifact, Holy Sacrifice. This is one of the best options in the current format for the character Troublemaker Crozet, who is another excellent tank if you don't already own Fallen Cecilia. Choosing Krau gives you amazing value if you are looking to build some tanks, so I'd definitely consider picking him. The previous 2 sections contain the heroes that I think most players should pick if they don't already have them. For completeness sake, the rest of this video will go over in detail every other character that's in the pool that I think might have some value to you and might be worth your time. I have split all of these remaining characters into one of 4 sections. They're either going to be limited heroes, characters that are great in PvE, characters that are great only in PvP, or characters that are not necessarily good, but their banners have amazing artifacts on them. Let's start with limited heroes, specifically my favorite 5-star in the entire game, Luna. Luna is tied with Kise as the game's premier single target blue damage dealer. Her S3, Ragnar Spear, can delete enemies in PvP, especially Guild Wars, if you can set her up properly, and when combined with her exclusive equipment, can snowball games out of control. Luna used to be a very high tier character a few months ago, but with the advent of Para and Conqueror Lilius, she has lost a lot of steam. With the 2 pre-ban system, as well as Hua Young being a prominent force in the meta, she may come back into favor in the coming months. The primary 2 reasons in my eyes to choose Luna, and no, I don't mean her very obvious large tracts of land, are going to be storing away spares of her for the release of a potential Mage Luna, as well as this banner's artifact, which is Draco Plate. Warriors in general don't have too many good artifacts, so Draco Plate stands out as one of the premier options. If a warrior is being played in PvP right now, there is a very high chance that Draco Plate is either their best option or it's at least in the conversation. If you're a PvP player, you can't go wrong with extra Draco Plates. Luna is most likely going to be one of the 5-stars that I personally choose specifically for the Draco Plate. If you want to know how to play her, there will be a guide for her that you can find here on this channel. The next limited hero to talk about is Cerise. She is a high-speed ranger whose primary job is to slow the enemy team down and provide extra damage to your team in the form of guaranteed dual attacks. Cerise used to be the premier speedster and setup hero in PvP for Epic 7, but she recently has lost a lot of her value in the higher ratings due to Conqueror Lilius and Peyra. Those heroes simply provide more to the team on similarly fast bodies. Cerise's best use nowadays is for players who struggle with expeditions, specifically Pain Pursuer Moroi, as well as Destructive Gigantes, however you pronounce it. Anyways, if you want to actually play Cerise in PvP, she's still excellent in Guild War offense, and if you're a dedicated cleave player, you may still find value to her in the 2 pre-ban system because Peyra and Conqueror Lilius may end up being constantly banned. The primary reason to choose Cerise is actually her artifact, Guiding Light. Guiding Light is arguably the best ranger artifact in the entire game for PvP. It grants stealth to heroes at the start of each battle and randomly over the course of the game, which in turn gives them a ton of protection. I see absolutely nothing wrong with choosing Cerise just to hoard away as many copies of Guiding Light as you can, since there aren't really too many better other options for rangers in this game. I have a guide here for Cerise on my channel if you actually want to learn how to play her. Fairytale Tenebria is a debuffer whose primary job is similar to Cerise in that she's meant to contain the enemy team right at the start of a battle. Just like Cerise, however, she has lost a ton of value as an opener because of Peyra and Conqueror Lilius. Healers like Mediator, Kawerik, and Designer Lilibet receiving buffs also make it incredibly difficult for her to do her job in any form of high-end PvP. Despite how poor I make this character sound, though, she is, in my opinion, one of the absolute best overall banners that you can choose from this group summon if you are a veteran player. For a couple of reasons. Let's go over them. 1, she's limited, but that's a given considering the section that we're actually in. But typically, limited heroes seem to get buffs more often, not necessarily going to be a guarantee, but it could happen. 2, she is a Tenebria character. That means that duplicates of her function as imprints for Spectre Tenebria, one of the game's top tier damage dealers. 3, the artifact on her banner is going to be Fairytale for a Nightmare, and it is a top tier artifact on a top tier hero, Archdemon Shadow. It's also really good on one of the newer heroes that's a fan favorite, Aria. There might be other mages in the future that might also want this artifact, and again, it is limited. Just like with Luna and Cerise, I have done a guide for Fairytale Tenebria that you can check out as well. Lastly, let's talk about Holiday Yuffine. Holiday Yuffine is a hero that was designed to be a silver bullet to heroes like Basar that would debuff and push back the enemy team. These kinds of openers, though, are no longer really in favor, so Holiday Yuffine doesn't really have a good niche right now. Honestly, one of the big reasons to choose her is in hopes that she receives another round of buffs or a potential rework, since she's the only summer unit that has failed to make a big splash anywhere in the game. Her best PvE application that I'm aware of is clearing Dagger Sakaar quests, namely using a lifesteal build to cheese the Clear All Warriors challenge in Hell Raid. The primary reason to choose Yuffine is because she is a limited hero you don't own, or you want copies of her artifact Champion's Trophy. Champion's Trophy is a really strong limited artifact in that it gives you bonus effectiveness and stun chance for very specific utility warriors such as Mui and Judge Kise. Circus Fantasia, however, can be used in a pinch, so I don't think it's quite as good as some of the other limited artifacts you could choose on this banner. As with the previous limiteds, there is a guide for her on this channel if you want to learn how to play her in her current form. For PvE, I can think of no other character to set it off right than the queen herself, Cecilia. She is, at least in my opinion, the game's premier PvE tank. Cecilia is amazing in PvE because she provides your team with immunity, dispels, slows, and attack down, and arguably the most important debuff in the entire game, which is Defense Break, which gives your DPS a massive boost in damage. She is not only great in Adventure and Raid, but she's also really strong in some of the game's hardest PvE content like Abyss and Advent. Cecilia is the best character probably in the entire game when it comes to expeditions. She is the best tank for 3 out of the 5, making her investment have a ton of value. She has some flex uses in Guild War offense as well if you were someone that is just trying to dip their toes a little tiny bit into PvP. Duplicates of her can also be used as imprints for Fallen Cecilia, which is the game's best PvP tank in case you don't know. Her artifact on her banner is Rise of a Monarch, which is one of the best artifacts in the game for PvE, namely Abyss, especially when you pair it with a hero like Adventurer Raz that everyone has access to. And as you guessed it, there's a guide for this hero too on the channel. It's kind of almost like I cover only the good heroes here or something. Oh boy, we get to talk about one of my favorite heroes in the entire game now, and that is Cermia. Just like with Vivian and Sigret, Cermia is accessible for free via the Awaken update, so if you've already acquired her, you can just skip this section. Cermia is, in my opinion, the game's premier PvE single target damage dealer. She is excellent in Raid plus Abyss, but more importantly, she's one of, if not the best character in the entire game for the Expedition Pain Pursuer Moroi, as well as almost every single stage of Hall of Trials. Her artifact, Border Coin, is not only one of the best options for her herself, but it's also excellent for Conqueror Lilius and Infernal Kawazu if you like playing those characters. Cermia was the first character I ever made a guide for in Epic 7 here on this channel. Next, let's talk about Iseria. Iseria is basically Tamarinne's best friend forever, as her S2, Oathkeeper, allows Tamarinne to activate Shining Star immediately at the start of the battle instead of having to wait for the really long cooldown. This allows you to cheese a lot of the game's PvE content and pick up some easy wins in low-level PvP as well if that's your thing. Iseria also functions as a solid option for expeditions thanks to all of her defense breaks, and she's also pretty good in Azimatic and Katie's hunts as well if you're struggling to clear those. Her artifact, Song of Stars, is a mandatory pickup if you want to eventually be able to farm most of the game's hunts at hyper speed. PvP heroes. This section is the longest and is filled with a lot of the current meta relevant heroes as well as niche heroes that are role players in most forms of PvP. We will primarily be focusing on heroes that are good in World Arena. I feel like I'd be doing this section a disservice if I didn't start with Ron, who is a commonly played and banned hero at all levels of play. Ron is the fastest hero in Epic 7, and his S3, Instant Blade, sets up a ton of aggressive compositions that can instantly win a lot of matches. Even though Ron is the fastest hero in the game, he doesn't function super well as a speed contester in my opinion, unless you have a strong hero that can follow up on his first turn, such as Edda, Summertime Iseria, or Silverblade Araminta. You should choose Ron if you like to play very aggressively and have high speed gear, or you're desperate for a 4th plus 5th pick speed contest plus cleave 2-man combination in order to put fear into your opponents. The Apple Man, better known as Violet, is a single target damage dealer that relies on his dodge mechanic as well as countering with said dodges to slowly win games. Violet is probably the hardest counter to blue units in the entire game, as he has a 100% chance to dodge and counter anything they do. Considering most aggressive compositions use blue units as openers, you'll have a pretty sizable advantage against them unless they pick one of Violet's hard counters. He's just overall an excellent character in PvP, as he demands a response or a total shift in playstyle, otherwise he just wins the match for free for you. Politis is a DPS/control mage hybrid who punishes characters with non-attack skills, usually openers and supports. Politis was the MVP hero for me 2 seasons ago on my climb to Emperor, and is, in my opinion, a core hero that I think everyone should own if you're even remotely serious about PvP. There are simply way too many characters and way too many matchups in this game where Politis can be an important role player. I can't possibly list them all in a simple 40 to 50 second segment. If you want to learn how to play her, there is a guide for her here on this channel, although it is a little bit outdated. The current meta build is very similar stats to the video, but you're most likely going to be on a counter set. Just like with Politis, Celine's primary role is to punish non-attack skills, although Celine is less of a I debuff you for using a non-attack skill and more of a your best character is absolutely dead if you use a non-attack skill. Just like with Politis, there's far too many matchups for me to discuss in a 40 to 50 second segment. Celine is, in my opinion, one of the best overall banners that you can take if you're interested in PvP, because she's a really good character. The imprints that she gives are very, very valuable to her Moonlight 5-star counterpart, and her artifact is not only her best option, but it's great on a lot of other characters as well. There is a guide for Celine on this channel, and my current build for Celine can also be found on my Discord, which you can find in the comment section down below. She is one of my favorite heroes to play, and I am constantly updating her to make sure that she fits the meta. My second favorite gacha character, voiced by Tanaka Rie. I am, of course, talking about Kise. She is arguably the best blue damage dealer in the entire game. With the rise of Hua Young, she has returned to the format in full force as a hard counter, but she does make a pretty damn good case for why she should have never have left in the first place. Kise has very high speed and some of the highest single target and AoE damage in the entire game. She is an absolute monster who will completely dominate an entire game if she is left unchecked. The problem with her, though, is that unchecked part, because she's really fragile, and even though she's fast, she's not the absolute fastest. It's going to require some good game knowledge of when to pick her and knowing for sure that she'll get to pop off. I have a guide for her here on this channel, although since it was made, Wind Rider was buffed and is now her best in slot artifact, so please keep that in mind. This next one might be a bit ambitious as she's yet to prove herself, but I do think after her buffs, Destina is a fairly solid banner choice for you to consider. Destina's buffs make it so she is one of the only non-Moonlight 5-star revive heroes in the game, and traditionally, revives are incredibly good in Guild Wars Arena and World Arena. Destina also doubles as one of the best cleansers in the game for players who lack some of the more premium options like Mediator Kawerik and Designer Lilibet. The changes to her S2 regen also make it so she can be used to help DPS cycle turns faster and churn out more damage for your team. Finally, duplicates make good imprints for Ruel of Light, one of the game's best soul weavers, and her artifact, Shamadra's Staff, is an excellent pickup to pair with the game's various cleansers, including Destina herself. Elena is a soul weaver whose primary niche is to protect versus aggressive AoE heroes, while also providing some sort of utility as a cleanser. Her S2 passive, Sacred Ground, will obviously mitigate a lot of AoE damage and heal you up from said AoE damage. You don't normally see Elena played too often, but a well-built one that is picked late in a draft can be absolutely backbreaking to specific control teams or teams who are trying to win with lots of AoE damage heroes, say maybe an Edda perhaps. Elena is best for players who need a cleanser and are struggling against cleave teams. Her artifact, Stella Harpa, is also the best artifact for Roana, one of the other heroes that I rated as highly desirable earlier in this video. Flandy is Landy's younger sister, who has two primary uses. The one that no one uses, which is as a Wyvern 13 one-shot support character, and then there's the one that cleavers use, which is as a setup for cleaving when you know your opponent has no fast heroes. Flan does not have the best base speed, so she is primarily chosen when you know you already have the first turn locked up. Flan's gameplay pattern is really straightforward. You use her soul burn to defense break the enemy team if you have the souls, then you just use her S2 data monopoly to boost your best damage dealer to the top, and just try to win the game instantly before your opponent gets a turn. That's really all there is to say about her. You pick her if you like cleaving or you really like cleavage. Piggybacking off of Flan, we have Edda. Edda was originally designed to be a pseudo damage / control hybrid, much like her sister from another mister, Politis. In actuality, however, she simply holds to Hagel's Ancient Book and pairs with characters like Flan to kill the enemy team in one fell swoop with her Soul Burn combo. Edda is actually one of the best, if not the best damage dealer for Cleave right now, it feels like. She boasts one of the highest win rates across the entire roster at all levels of play. If you want to learn more about Edda, you can find a guide for her here on this channel. Kawerik, sometimes referred to by the community as Red Hand Guy, is basically Red Kise. He does all the things that Kise does, but he's red. So if you just need a very fast, hard-hitting red damage dealer that can reset cooldowns on key heroes before they kill one of your key characters, you just pick Red Hand Guy. Or, you could just use him as imprints for Mediator Kawerik, who just had a Mystic Summon banner. Senya is as I described her in How to Play Senya. She is a green juggernaut who is content to hunker down and weather the storm until it's her turn. Then, she can finally rip and tear through the enemy team until it's done. Senya is primarily used to combat cleave, using their own attacks against them thanks to her S2 passive, Grace of the Battlefield. However, it's not just cleave where Senya excels. She's outstanding against dodge-based heroes like Violet and Remnant Violet, and she's also a hard check to niche but powerful heroes you might see in Guild Wars, such as Spirit Eye Celine. Senya is an excellent choice overall in my opinion. She's really good, she's insanely fun to play, and her banner has nutso value for pulling multiples. Senya's very stat hungry, so she loves getting all that free attack from dupes, and to play her effectively, you're going to want to have a lot of copies of her artifact, Spear of a New Dawn. For any other questions you could possibly have about Senya, check out the guide. Vildred is a green AoE damage dealer who is primarily only played in cleave or speed contest scenarios, and that's only because of how insane he is once you have multiple copies of him. If you don't know, a triple S imprint Vildred gives your entire team 12 speed, which can decide entire games, as having this imprint is usually the difference between going first or losing the match. You really should only be choosing Vildred if you are a dedicated cleave player, as his usage outside of this is limited primarily to farming things like Banshee 13 and Azimanic 13 until you can make a better team. I recognize though that Arbiter Vildred is a thing and he's very popular and a lot of people have him, so you could technically take him for Arbiter imprints. Just I don't know why you would want to imprint Arbiter when Green Vildred himself is probably the best imprint in the entire game, so I just don't know why you'd want to give that up. His artifact, Sword of Summer Twilight, is very, very good for him because it gives him a bunch of extra damage if you're going to use him as a cleaver, and it's also very, very good, fittingly, on his master, Ran. Characters with great artifacts. The heroes that are in this section are mostly heroes that are falling out of favor or have fallen out of favor, and you're primarily choosing them for their artifact first and foremost, with a couple of exceptions like the first one we're going to talk about, which is Charlotte. Charlotte is one of the best AoE damage dealers in the current game. The primary reason she doesn't see as much play, however, is the same reason that a lot of other AoE damage dealers aren't really seeing play right now, and that's because the game right now favors high speed openers and high speed, high damaging single target nukes to remove key heroes right away. Charlotte may come back into favor, especially with the new 2 pre-ban system, and she's still at least a viable late pick in World Arena. She's just no longer the powerhouse that she was like last season or 2 seasons ago. The primary reason to choose Charlotte is her artifact, Elbris Ritual Sword, which is one of the best artifacts in the game for a lot of counter-based knights such as Bellona. Terrible on Charlotte, but you can at least pick up a usable hero or get imprints for your little Queen Charlotte while you're trying to get extra copies of the game's best 5-star knight artifact. Ravi used to be a dominant bruiser, but has since been totally eclipsed by her ML5 counterpart, Apocalypse Ravi. Nowadays, you only really see Red Ravi being paired with one of the 2 Liliuses to counter something like Angel of Light Angelica. There are 2 primary reasons to choose Ravi, the first of which is imprints for your Apocalypse Ravi, although admittedly those imprints aren't really that good. The second reason, which is the more important reason to choose the banner, is that Ravi's artifact is Sigurd Scythe. We talked about this with Luna, but warriors have pretty terrible artifacts overall, and Draco Plate and Sigurd Scythe are the 2 options most characters want, unless they're going to be on something like a Symbol of Unity or Portrait of the Saviors. You can't really go wrong with having lots of spare copies of Sigurd Scythe laying around. It's one of the best warrior artifacts in the entire game. Basar used to be an insane opener, but has fallen out of favor because of his 108 base speed. It just really isn't enough anymore when compared to some of these other openers. I still think, by the way, that this hero is still good, and I don't know why people aren't playing him. I think if you play him a bit slower with high effectiveness and good bulk, which is not that hard for him to get because he has one of the highest defense scores in the entire game, I think you can make him work. The primary reason to choose Basar, in my opinion, is either you want imprints for Desert Jewel Basar, his ML5 counterpart, because he could use all the stats he can get, but more importantly, the second reason, his artifact is Abyssal Crown. I don't really think I have to explain too much about Abyssal Crown. If you don't know, it's been fighting with Tehagel's Ancient Book for the best mage artifact in the game pretty much since the very beginning of Epic 7. When you pair a AoE character with Abyssal Crown, there's always a chance that you can get a clutch stun that just automatically wins you the game, and that's why it might be worth it for you to choose Basar. Charon used to be a very good answer to Cleave, but since the release of Angel of Light Angelica, it feels like literally everything in the game counters him, and he really just doesn't feel like a viable option. If you wanted to play him, I guess his best use would be as a speed contester. You could use him to assassinate a target thanks to him having the highest base speed in the game. But even then, I don't really think he's particularly great. The primary reason to choose him is for his artifact Shepherd of the Hollow, which is the best artifact in the game for two very strong Moonlight 5-star heroes, Remnant Violet and Closer Charles. So if you don't have this artifact and you have those heroes and you have good gear for those heroes, this might be worth choosing. I know I trashed Holiday Yuffine, but regular Yuffine is at least a decent pickup if you don't own her as a hero. She's one of the best damage dealers and dispellers in the game for Pain Pursuer Moroi, and she is a decent Banshee option not only for new players, but veterans that might want to potentially be building a Banshee one-shot team. However, at the end of the day, I think the primary reason to choose Yuffine is for her artifact Merciless Glutton, which is excellent for aggressive single-target damage-dealing warriors such as her sister Luna, or even a character like Zahak if you really enjoy playing him. To round out the video, let's talk about Chloe. I personally don't think Chloe is that good at all, as you can get better performance out of other heroes for a lot less, but she is still someone you can use in PvE for things like Wyvern if you really want. The primary reasons to choose Chloe are imprints for her ML5 counterpart Maid Chloe, as well as her artifact which was recently buffed, A Little Queen's Huge Crown. A Little Queen's Huge Crown now functions as a different version of the artifact Merciless Glutton, which makes it excellent for heroes like Zahak, or someone like Luna when she goes up against somebody like Fallen Cecilia or Hua Yang. And that is going to do it for the custom group summons guide. Hopefully this video was of some help to you. You can help me out by remembering to leave me a like and subscribing if you're not already. It really helps the channel out here a ton. But more importantly than that, consider sharing this video with another friend or guildmate if you think it will help them out. As always, let me know if I missed anything down in the comments below. Enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of your week, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Later.